Welcome to the Trinity Life Podcast. The Trinity Life Podcast is designed to help our church family across both campuses connect with the hearts and stories of our. In each episode, we step beyond the talking points and formal scripts to have a laid back, relational, and heartfelt conversation with our leaders. Join us as we get to know the people behind the ministry, their journeys, and the passions that drive them to serve. We're here with Kyle Talicska and excited to hear his story, what he's passionate about. So Kyle, thanks for being here remotely and giving a try to this remote thing and being on the podcast with me. Good. So like
To be
normal,
here.
Kyle, we're just going to kind of start out with the beginning, right? Where'd you come from? What did family look like? What did before Christ look like for you? Schooling and family situation. Kind of tell us about yourself, where it started.
Yeah, so I grew up in Auburn, Michigan. So a small rural town between Bay City and Midland, the youngest of three. And I grew up kind of a hybrid in some ways. So I went to a Catholic school through fourth grade, and we were Catholics. And family attended the Catholic church, but in a lot of ways, it was my mom and dad were open and seeking, and open to a lot of exposure, right? And so I can remember, Auburn had a Catholic church,
Sure.
a Baptist church, a Lutheran church, a Methodist church, and probably more churches for sure more churches than we had stoplights, because we only had two of those. But so it was. I can remember going to Awana growing up, you know, one of the local churches, and being plugged in, at Awana, and then as kind of transitioning to middle school, um, going to going to the Baptist church had a youth group, or maybe that was
Somebody had a
maybe it was
youth
the
group.
Methodist church. I don't remember truly, but I remember being plugged into a youth group, and there was guys and that were my age that loved Jesus, but we were all kind of seeking and trying
Sure.
to figure out life together, right? But truly it was
Mhm.
my faith was, I was a good kid, not ever really in trouble, and didn't have
Mhm.
that big aha moment, um but was fortunate enough, so I went to Saginaw Valley State
Mhm.
University for teaching, and didn't live at home my freshman year. I
Sure.
had some growing up that I still needed to do, so I was not fortunate enough to live on campus then my freshman year, but as school started my freshman year, and you're taking, I think it was 16 or 18 credits that semester. You have a lot more free time than what you do in your normal school life, right? And my parents, urging me to, hey, get plugged in, do some things. So looked at intramural sports, and was doing some things that way, and just looking at different opportunities. And at Saginaw Valley, on the campus of Saginaw Valley, they had a Christian organization called His House Christian Fellowship. And so, like, piqued my interest, right? Of, oh, I should check that out. And so one of the they met on Tuesday nights. That was the night that they had church, their campus church, and I can I we met in Founders Hall in the beginning, on the campus of Saginaw Valley, and I can remember that first Tuesday night going, and there was something different about it, right? Um it was just special. Like, you could tell that like you were in the presence, that things were moving, right? And definitely the Holy Spirit, and just like, this is a place, these are people that I want to be around. This is where I want to be plugged in at. This is something that not
Right.
necessarily I want to do, but this is a way that I want to live. And that was truly, started my freshman year. It was probably September, October of that freshman year. Like, that's when my faith became my own. That semester, I went on a fall retreat. Actually, it was at Spring Hill camps. The last year that we were at Spring Hill, and was baptized. Again, just kind of made my faith and owned my faith. And through His House Christian Fellowship, was able to just to have the ability to lead small groups, led some mission trips. To we led I led a habitat trip. I led another trip, and really just blossomed and grew in faith. So much so that my senior year, I was able
Oh,
to
cool.
intern with His House Christian Fellowship, and so I was student teaching, but then I interned and had the opportunity to
Hmm.
give some messages, and preach, as well as just opportunity just to grow. And obviously, as you teach
Sure,
things, you
sure. And it
become more
comes to wrap
embedded,
around
and
your own.
you understand
Let
it.
me
You
uh let
understand
me
it better.
back you up
So
a little bit,
yeah,
Kyle.
so
What did
yeah,
what did
for sure.
what did faith life look like at home growing up? So you connected with church here and connected with church there, but what did, mom and dad or brothers, brothers and sisters, what did that look like at home? Was there an outside of church expression of you guys' faith? What did that look like?
I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
yes and no. And I don't know if I have a great answer for that. But it Aaron, it was,
Sure, sure.
we went to church, right? And we would talk about God, and we would talk about
Uh-huh.
living a faith-filled life. And there were lots of times where I can remember, like,
Okay.
my mom being in the Word, and my mom being,
Sure.
doing different Bible studies and doing different things like that. But um no, like,
Sure, of
and not that
course.
it was great, right? But it was not like, and it wasn't going through the motions either. But
No, no, but
I don't
but
have a
but I think
great
the answer
answer
that
for
you've
that.
given
So,
is,
um,
that
and I don't
that
know
does
if,
say something because, I mean, just for example, that mom being in the Word and seeing that, and so there's some foundational
Mhm,
pieces, and that says that, this isn't just a Sunday morning faith, right? This isn't just something we do on something Sunday morning. It affects our
right.
lives on a day-to-day basis. Now, to what degree? Sure, we can jump back and forth and say, well, it was an 8 out of 10 or a 6 out of 10, or compared to this, but at the core, it
Right.
was more than just a Sunday morning Christmas and Easter faith that your family was practicing and
Yes.
that
Oh,
you
for
had a
sure. For sure.
foundation in. Yeah.
And I think it was and not saying
Mhm.
anything ill against the Catholic denomination, but, like, I think that's why we had exposure to,
Sure.
VBSs from a different church. That's why we had, Awana. That's why we had, because my parents wanted it
Okay.
to be
Got you.
a personal aspect of our life. Um, because my Catholic church didn't offer a youth group. They didn't offer different things. And so that was more of a Sunday morning. And yeah, we were at church on Sunday or Saturday night, but as far as, like, having that personal relationship, um, you know, we discussed it, we talked about it, we lived it, but in a lot of ways, it
Sure.
was,
Sure.
how do
So
you
a
get that
lot of trying
exposure,
to
right?
expose. Right. Okay. But that's where you went on Sunday morning and you were Catholic. And so you did that. Okay. So really,
Yep.
it's kind of interesting blend. You mentioned
Yeah.
kind of an interesting blend there at the beginning. When you talk about connecting with this His House ministry, can you see fingerprints
Mhm.
of that different exposure, whether Catholic, Baptist, Methodist, whatever? Can you see fingerprints of that as you began to form your faith on its own? Some things of, did you see like, oh, I liked this from this exposure I had, but I didn't like this from this exposure I had. And
No, no, I think it was just like, it's real
sure,
authentic life on life, right? And I think that's why, as an adult, my wife and I, we've been drawn to churches that obviously
sure.
do life on life relationships, right? And have small group,
Mhm.
the plug-in of small groups, because you see that you're a part of that. You realize, wow, when you do life together in real life, whether it's great, and things are going really well, and things are really hard right now, and we're going to build each other up, and we're going to be a cornerstone for, whether it's my family that's affected and needs to be built up, or someone
Right.
else's family. Man, we're going to pour into them. I think that's
Okay.
the first time that I really saw that piece of, like, hey, you're 20 college students or in his house was,
Mhm.
I think about 140 total. But you're a large group, but you're going to pour in together. You're going to do life. You're going to be authentic. You're going to be real. Some of the best relationships that I have, are still with the
Sure.
people that we did life together. And it has gone beyond, hey, we were, you know, crazy college kids to then, hey, we met our significant
Mhm.
others, we've gotten married, we've had kids,
Mhm.
we've continued to live life together and pour into each other. And that's so vital and so important. And that's speaking, full circle to even
Sure.
Trinity. That's where small groups are so important. Because you can dodge in and out on a Sunday morning and you be noticed, and you can be hello, say hello, and you can, be
Right.
cordial, but
Right.
real, right? With
I'm
everybody, and
blessed.
life is
I'm
fine and
blessed.
life is good. And yep, I'm okay. And then you go on, yep.
Mhm.
And let's just move on, right? But when you're plugged into a small group and you're able to do life on life and be real and be authentic, that's where growth
That's
truly
interesting.
happens. Um,
Sure.
and that's where challenges happen too. Like, hey, I've been called out by other
Mhm.
men that I've been in parts of small groups with,
Mhm.
of, hey, Kyle, what about this? In in in
Right.
in the same way,
Right.
I've done the same thing to other men, and women, and
Mhm.
it's
I
being
think that's the
authentic and
third
being
time
real,
that's the third time
because
you've
I
used that
think.
word authentic. And do you think,
Mhm.
kind of place it more, where do you think um, the push and the drive and the building, how did that authenticity happen at his house, but not so much in some of those other areas growing up? What was so different? What made it that you could be authentic in those places at his house? Take your time. Take
I
your time. We
never
got
thought
time.
about it, Aaron, but I think no, yeah, I I think when not I think believe when you are real and you are vulnerable, and people see that you are real and you are vulnerable, it's okay to be
Okay.
authenticity happens.
Sure.
I think it's built over time. And so, and as
Mhm.
you're authentic or you're real, right? And not burned is maybe the wrong word, but people genuinely care about you, and
Sure.
are grounded in the same
Sure.
faith, right? In the same belief. It feels different. It
Mhm.
is different. And there's a
Mm.
trust there that,
That's a big word.
goes beyond goes beyond just
That's a big word. Trust
a
in that
conversation,
authenticity, I
right?
think.
Um,
Yeah. Well, and when you're with a bunch of people in a similar situation, I think that helps too. I think, but you mentioned something that I think is really important, and that is that, you have to be it to find it. You have to be authentic. You have to be real. You have to take your mask off. And sometimes that can be
mhm,
scary. Um, but right,
absolutely.
exactly. But everybody
No one
wants
wants
it,
to do it.
right?
Right. Well, and especially, I think, unfortunately, so like I'm in a generation that grew up without social media and then transitioned in college with social media and kind of some of those things. But we all want the Facebook or the Instagram light, and so we and Instagram is allowed. You
Right.
can put filters on things and make
Mhm.
your skin
Mhm.
glow and do all these things, but like we shouldn't strive to have just
Right.
a Facebook fake life, right? Or an Instagram fake life. Like it takes being real and authentic and seeing our scars and seeing our just the struggles that we go through, because I think
Mhm.
going back to being authentic, there is
Right.
only one person who lived a perfect life. Um, and we all want to give the perception that we don't have
Right.
skeletons or we don't have scars,
Right.
but each one of us carries some baggage, and each one of
Mm.
us carries
Come on.
carries that garbage. And we do need we need to be able to take that garbage to
Right. Mhm.
the ultimate garbage man, in Jesus Christ, because he unlike anybody else, he takes it and takes our sins and takes all of those things, and we don't ever see it again. And that's a piece that, we all want to be fake in some ways of and hide the things that we're struggling with in life, or the things that, our fears or our
Mhm.
pride, or whatever it might be. But ultimately it's
Right.
no, remove
Right.
the
And
filters.
so
Let's be
something
real.
about this his house ministry just started to develop in you this authenticity because you saw other people being
Mhm.
authentic and it was refreshing maybe.
Yeah, I think it was the first time in life that I didn't feel
Oh, man.
judged,
Oh,
for who I was or what I believed, or yeah, I think you too. You try to put masks on, or fit this mold or fit that mold, but no, like I could be Kyle, who loved
right,
Jesus,
right,
but it was also a little crazy, and
right.
for sure a lot ADHD,
Mm-hmm.
undiagnosed, but like I could be me, and truly people.
Hmm.
And not that it was all about me, right? But it was,
Right,
people still loved me for it, and came
right,
back to a friendship, because in spite of maybe some
right.
of my
Warts and
scars and
all,
some of
right.
who I am, right?
No, it's so good. That's
Exactly,
so good.
exactly.
Well, I think, and I do a lot of times on the podcast, just kind of dig into these pieces because there's a couple things I want, just people to kind of to work through and process through is, number one, in our faith foundations and when we're coming to faith in Christ and we're connecting with a community, I think people who are, you know, maybe looking into connecting with the community and maybe have some of those apprehensions and fears like you mentioned of that authenticity, fear of judgment, etc., that they can hear, hey, everybody kind of feels that and they're not alone in that. But also so that people who are a part of the
Yeah,
community, who may have been a part of the community for years and years and years, can hear, hey, this is what it takes. This is what people are coming in with this in the back of their mind of, hey, am I going to be judged here? Are people going to be authentic here? If I show who I really am, will they still want me here? Those kinds of things. And so I hate to belabor a point, but I think what I'm trying to get at is those things so that we can kind of unpack that from where you came from. And I'm sure we'll see as we continue on, we'll see how these kinds of things shape how you operate in your current role here at Trinity Fellowship. So you're in college, you met your wife through this his
yeah.
house ministries and or his house Christian Fellowship.
His House Christian Fellowship. Yeah.
And so you were headed into teaching. You were interning with his house.
Hmm.
Yeah, pick it up from there and let's go again.
Yeah. So, got married, after I graduated, and Jill, my wife, was still in school, and so I was hired actually to teach preschool. So I taught preschool for 2 years, and I was a Saginaw ISD employee, and but working with at-risk kids, in Swan Valley Public Schools, as an ISD employee, and then Jill finished, where I guess within our faith journey, um, we got plugged in. So as we were transitioning from college ministry to adult
Right.
ministry, right? Our our best friends, were, we're also seeking for a church, and they we had gone, we had done his house with them as well. They were a few years older than us, and they landed in the Bridgeport Frankenmuth Birch Run area, um, and they got plugged into Frankenmuth Bible Church, and so Jill actually had lived with them for a few summers, as she was finishing school and taking summer classes, and so, living at home in Auburn, I was able to drive down, and we would go to
Hmm.
church at Frankenmuth Bible together, and that kind of became our adult home, our adult church home. And when after we got married, we lived in Bay City and still drove to Frankenmuth and then, was fortunate enough to, we both got teaching jobs in Clio, which is about 15
Okay.
20 minutes from Frankenmuth, and stayed then plugged into Frankenmuth Bible Church, and we're there. We got married in that church, and grew, as an early married couple in that church. Was able actually to serve as an elder, um, and we went through a pastor transition at that time. And fortunately for that church, that church has continued to blossom and grown, and they, we've stayed in touch and watched kind of as we've moved and transitioned to Trinity. We've been here for about 11 years now. But they have grown into just a really healthy, vibrant church that serves and loves the Lord, and is plugged into the community and the outer communities, and grounded in small groups and all of those things. That preach the word and do it well. And so when we were transitioning to Big Rapids in this area, it was hey, we were looking and we were seeking a true Bible believing church that preached the word uh, in truth, and did that in a way that you could get plugged in as well with small groups. And Trinity fit and checked so many of those boxes
Sure.
that, like, it became home. And so we've been here now
Okay.
for 11 years.
Well,
and
excellent.
and yeah, that's
Sure.
kind of our
So
faith
really,
journey,
the
right?
move to this area was based on your work,
So it's kind of funny. Jill and I are both educators. And I finished my master's degree, and I got my master's degree in public administration from U of M. And so we had prayed about and drew kind of a 50-mile radius around Clio, because we weren't going to leave, and that was kind of where we were going to be in our home base. And obviously we're way further than
right?
50 miles from Clio. And so, but Jill was a Morley girl. She grew up
Okay.
in the Morley area. And so Chippewa Hill School District had an opening for a building principal, building admin, at the elementary level. And so my youngest son was born in October, and Jill had a C-section with him. We brought her home from the hospital. The day I brought her home from the hospital, I drove across the state, had an interview, and never thought in a million years. Well, I mean, I hoped that I would get the job, but the interview team interviewed me, and one of my former staff members jokes, I don't even remember, but like I still had the
Mhm.
hospital band under my suit on my wrist. So like literally it was the day we brought Mason home from the hospital, and interviewed, and I had a was we talked, we interviewed, and the superintendent at the time, I stepped out and he said, "Hey, why don't you go on or walk with to the building?" Came back after that with the building secretary, and he said, "Hey, can you stick around for a few minutes?"
Right.
Um, sure.
Right.
And
No,
yeah, I'm
you know
not
what?
going
I
to tell
think
you
I'll
no.
pass. I'm,
And yep, I got to get home. And so, he after he finished meeting with the team, he said, I never thought in years that I would be doing this tonight. Things don't usually move at this speed, but I've got board approval with the board members that were on the interview, and all the staff are on board. Um, you know, Kyle, I want you to come and work for us. And one of the reasons that we want to hire you, and one of the reasons I want you part of my team, is because you're a Christian. And
like,
at
all
that
right,
point, like,
God's
you
God's made
truly
it
know,
pretty
like, hey,
clear
working
here.
in work, God has made it, God has made that pretty clear, like, because public ed is our mission field. Jill and I speak pretty openly about that. Like, we weren't called to be overseas missionaries, and go serve in an underprivileged third world country, but we were called to be missionaries here in America, and serve underprivileged kids, or kids that
Mhm.
just need to know Jesus. And speak the
Right,
gospel
right.
every day, and if necessary, use the words, right? And so we literally, so this was in
Okay.
2015, excuse me. We left. I left Clio, left, and had to tell Jill, "Hey, honey, they offered me the job on the spot."
I mean,
Again,
there he
2 days
is.
after
And a
having
baby.
having a
Yeah. Oh my
baby,
goodness. Yes.
no, having a baby. And so and Mace or Michael, our oldest, he was 16 months old. So we had our kiddos pretty close together. And so we had a 16-month-old and a 2-day old, and we put our house on the market that
Wow.
weekend. It sold that weekend, which again, in the height of the recession and the house is not selling or not being able to do anything, right? Our small group at that time came in, packed us all up, pitched in, just did life on life together. And in 2 weeks, we had moved everything across the state. We had sold a house, bought a house, started a new job, and had a baby. And it was truly all completely orchestrated by God. Because if he wasn't
Right.
involved in that and his hand wasn't on that,
Sure.
we probably
Right.
still wouldn't
Right.
have that house sold.
But it just
you know,
worked out. Well, yeah, it just makes me think of,
pretty remarkable.
Chuck being on his way over, next week. And as of this recording here, what is it today?
Absolutely.
The 15th. He's closed on 2 houses in, a month. It's like, well, that works. Right. So
It's amazing what God can do.
So you're an educator, you're doing your thing at Chippewa Hills still. And
Mhm.
tell me about the journey to becoming an elder at Trinity Fellowship.
Yeah. I think it's our biblical qualifications of an elder should be everyone who professes faith in Jesus, like should be our standard, right? It should be the bar, it should be the goal. And it should be what we try to attain. And not necessarily, you have to be an elder, you need to serve, you need to do those things, but like living a life above reproach should be,
Right.
the bar, right? And so I was fortunate enough, Pastor Gary saw me and sought me out, and said, "Hey, Kyle, I'd love to mentor you. I'd love to take you through God's man, and be a part of this." And through God's man, and not that he was interested in me as a person, right? But he planted seeds, and hey, have you thought about eldering? Well, yeah, yes, Pastor Gary. I served as an elder in a previous church, but I think with any service portion, it's not that you don't want to step on someone's toes, but hey, I don't. Someone's already doing that ministry, and so if I put my hat in the ring, like, I might take somebody's job.
Sure.
And that obviously that's not what it's
Right.
like, but you have those apprehensions, you have those fears. So it's something I prayed about, and something that Jill and I discussed of, hey, there's a lot of opportunities, a lot of evenings that I'm doing stuff with school and with work, and obviously with our boys. Do we have the time? Do we have the
jump into
capacity?
this thing, right?
And not that I told
Right.
exactly, and not that I told God no. But I kind of kept
Let me
pushing
run this through
Gary
a couple
off,
of brain
kept
cells
pushing-
first, and let's see
Yep,
how this fits.
Exactly.
I'm not
I'll-
boarding a
I'll
boat to
keep praying about it,
Nineveh,
I'll
but
keep working in.
I
but
might look at what tickets cost.
But I think exactly. But I think you hear those nudges, and you listen. You listen to sometimes the steel I-beam that hits you over the head, but you also listen to the little nudges of, hey, Kyle, you need to do this. You need to be faithful. And so it's then, yeah, I will go through the screening process, and if the screening team says, yep, you meet the qualifications, then I guess we will continue down and trust God. And so that's where we landed the plane. And not that
Sure.
it's always a work in progress, but it's we will trust the process, and if God chooses to have me serve, awesome. And if he doesn't, that's okay too. But why not? And then try to fix those things to then be more equipped and be ready for the future. I think we all need to shepherd each other, and we all need to be part of the flock and be willing to grow and lead and do. Some have titles, and I don't think it doesn't. The elder title
doesn't change how you
matter. It
operate,
shouldn't
and that's
matter,
I want to
right?
get into that a little bit too.
where do you see,
Yeah.
your role as an elder? How is that? I mean, of course you go to meetings, but that's not what you do as an elder, right? That's a very small part. So where do you see God really using I mean, where do you see God really using the Kyle tool in the kingdom at this point as an elder?
I think that is always being not always being figured out, but
Sure.
that's something that I'm praying about, something that I'm working through. I think administratively,
Hmm.
I've been blessed with some gifts. I think maybe things through, and not to toot my own horn or any of those things, but I think about things maybe differently or see things differently. I have a deep care, for people, especially within
Hmm.
within the community, within the body. I think it's and sitting and hearing Patrick's vision and being part of
Sure.
Patrick's interview team. Um, and his we want to be a church that
Sure.
serves the community and the broader community. Those things resonated with me. And so, I think my job as an elder is to be able to serve our church well, and help in those in leadership
Right.
ways, right? But I think it's something that's always it's always kind of rewriting itself and redefining itself. I looked at in part of why jumping on board or why now, and being part of Patrick's interview team, and also seeing an elder board who has served
Yeah.
very faithfully for a lot of years, and knowing that probably over the next 5 years, there's going to
Sure.
be some significant transition, but there's also some significant knowledge and some significant wisdom that
Hmm.
sits on the board, and so to be able to hear from
Hmm.
the elders, the seasoned elders of, hey, why does Trinity continue to operate this way, and has for the last 30 years and has for the last 30 years successfully, um, prior to them maybe stepping down or stepping into a different role. You have men on that team that have served this body very, very faithfully, and um, you know that was part of the season,
Sure.
or the why now, right? Because maybe as we transition, or as the Lord leads that transition, you don't want to lose all of the
Right.
historical wisdom,
Right.
that does sit in those rooms. So there's been a lot of listening. There's been a lot of asking questions. There's been hey, why do
Hmm.
we do it this way? Why do we do it that way? Maybe some of the guys are like, Kyle, stop asking questions. But I think it's asking and learning through the knowledge of
Right.
figuring out why, right? And
Gotcha.
and being able to do some of those things. So truly, that's the role right now of not figuring it out, but
Trying
learning
to
from
trying to allow that
the wisdom that's in that room.
generational shift in the leadership is
Absolutely.
and managing that. And so you
Hmm.
say, gifted administratively, so keeping calendars and the stuff that I am terrible at, but just keeping track of details, and obviously a passion for young people as an educator, and so that probably makes its way into there as well. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, I
Hmm.
I think you're spot on. And truly a passion for people, and just meeting them where they're at, but yet also, hey, how can
Right.
how can we serve?
Yeah.
How can we serve well? Um, you know, we've got to know our body, Aaron, and we've got to know our people, um, it, and
Sure.
that takes work, right? Because we're not, we shouldn't be, and we're not. I don't feel like we are. A group of men that sit in
Right.
lock
Right.
ourselves in a room and
Right.
just make decisions, right? It's prayerfully consider, okay, how is this going to impact? And
Hmm.
it's also trusting the church leadership. Like, our job,
Hmm.
first and foremost as elders,
Right.
is to shepherd, and to shepherd the flock well. And so it's not in policy, and it's not in, hey, let's look at our finances and let's do like, yes, those are parts of it, but we need to shepherd our body well. And in order to shepherd our body well, we need to be in touch, and we need to be listening to who they are and what they need. And also listening to the staff, leaning on Patrick, leaning on Kevin, leaning on Scott, of, hey, we need this, or we need that, or, we need to look this because we see this
So,
being a
Kyle,
need in the next 3 to 5 years.
Right.
And trusting them
Sure.
to
So, Kyle,
kind
what
of
does
lead
that
that
look
ship
like?
too.
Just to kind of circle back toward the things we talked about authenticity and judgment and understanding and listening well. And how do you see? And this might be a harder question, and that's okay. Let's be authentic. Let's be real here, right? How do you see a group of? Because I'm almost done. I think I've got 2 elders left I need to interview, right? A group of 13 elders and 2 campuses that are geographically not like right together. How do you see,
Right.
as you are, learning from the wisdom of the others, and as Patrick now comes from Newaygo to Big Rapids, how do you see Newaygo campus fitting into all of these things that we're talking about of relational authenticity and understanding and shepherding? What are you seeing? What's on your heart as far as that's concerned?
I think, I think what multi-site church is, or what it is not going to be, that's the piece that in some ways the elders have figured out, but in some ways we need to transition, and we need to work through and figure it out. One of probably the biggest blessings, I think, for Newaygo as well, is the fact that Patrick
Right.
sat in Chuck's seat,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
And lived Chuck's seat, and truly having and being blessed to sit on Patrick's interview team, and knowing that, hey, we did a search, and we did a national search, and we got to hear Patrick's heart, not just for Newaygo, right, but for the body of Trinity from Big Rapids, Newaygo, and beyond, and got to hear what Patrick may, and not necessarily envisions, right? Because I think one of the things that Patrick, he's blessed in many things, but like, he cares about people, and he cares about the person behind everything else, right? But the fact that he has lived at Newaygo, the fact that he pours into Newaygo, the fact that he loves the body of Newaygo as much as he loves the body of Big Rapids, like that's the piece that I think is exciting for Newaygo, right?
Sure.
There's maybe that fear of, what could happen, but Patrick leading that ship, is encouraging, is exciting. So what does multi-site look like? I think it's ever evolving. I think even just from a congregational attender, in some ways, in the beginning, and kind of watching Newaygo start, and us come alongside them, and really get to a place where Newaygo is much healthier and growing, and doing all those things. I don't want any site, any church site, whether it's Big Rapids, Newaygo, or beyond, to ever feel like they're the little brother of the, hey, we need this. Okay, let's steal it from that smaller church. Oh, we need this. Okay, let's take it from there. We need this. Okay. But it should be no, we're all resources. This is kingdom resources. We need to put kingdom resources in Newaygo. We need to put kingdom resources in Big Rapids, and we need to pour into both, equally. And sometimes that might mean that Newaygo is going to need more support, whether it's financially or staff or just people in service, right? And there are going to be times where, oh, that's going to be Big Rapids, right? And so that's financially and big, staff and all those things, or whatever the next site might be. I don't see, I don't think.
Oh, sure. Right.
And
Of
again,
course. And
God
again,
can write this
right.
story, and God will write this story, and God will change everything. But I don't foresee
Sure.
Trinity stopping with 2
Mhm.
campuses. I don't know what it would be. And I think there's that fear of,
Mhm.
can you grow too fast? Yup. In the fact
Yeah, because
that, like,
how do you
you're
how do you handle
growing,
the shepherding that
not,
you talked about in Newaygo when there's 11
correct.
elders from Big Rapids campus and 1 at Newaygo campus, or 12 and 1, or well, hopefully 2, right, with Wayne coming on.
Hopefully 2,
But
in a
again,
couple weeks,
when you look at that, how
Lord
do you
willing.
see that play
But
out?
I think that's,
where do we do with that
and
statistic there? What do we do with that?
yeah, and I think there's been more, there has been more,
Effort, maybe?
I don't know the word I'm looking for. An effort, maybe.
Sure,
But I don't
sure.
want to say that there wasn't effort before. But I think that's why, the Newaygo campus, Paul has made more effort
That
to
was
try to be
awesome.
there
That's
once a month.
wonderful. Oh,
You've
thank him
seen,
for it.
and I think
Mhm.
Paul
Mhm.
will be there, more regularly. And there are other elders that are doing the same thing. But it's also that, if it was the rotating basis of, okay, it's Kyle this week and John next week and Steve one week and Dennis the next week, like, that's also, I think
Right.
Newaygo would feel like, all
Right.
right, guys,
Oh,
what
yes.
are you doing? Right? Like
Yes.
we're
Oh,
setting,
we
we're
gotta
setting the
check off
token
the
elder
list. And
every week,
right. That's
right?
not authentic, right?
And that's
Right.
not authentic, and that's not real either. But okay, how do we stay connected? And Dwight has done a phenomenal
Oh,
job.
fantastic.
Mike has
Absolutely.
done a phenomenal. Mike sits in on our elder meetings, and and there. But it's hey, how can we be real? How can we be authentic? But also, there are different
Well,
elders
sure.
that are in different stages of life too, right? And so trying to make it, Trinity Newaygo might not be your home church, but they're still part of our church, right? And so it's that delicate balance. And
Right.
when there's a third campus
Boy,
someday,
that's a
how do you
wrestling
navigate that?
match,
And what
though,
does that
isn't it?
look like?
I mean, internally,
Yeah.
as we do, you say balance. I could say balance, tension, whatever. I think Patrick's word is tension. I lean toward balance, but boy,
Yeah.
that's a,
Yep.
I think it's encouraging as we, do this podcast and find out where your heart is. I think it's encouraging to hear that is on your mind, that is on your heart. And yes, you recognize it. Oh, it's not just a token, send our elder down. So thank you very much for your authenticity to say, look, hey, this is something we're still, trying to work through and figure out how to do this best and how God can use this best. We don't want to be way over here and out of balance in this way and check things off a list. And we also don't want to be way over here and say, well, you're an elder, so you need to
Right.
move to Newaygo. That's not, neither
Right.
of those are okay. Right.
And I think the beauty in it is
Right.
Patrick's heart
Right.
in leading,
Right.
in shepherding the whole flock, right? Like,
Mhm.
Patrick cares
Mhm.
deeply for Newaygo. And so it's not a, hey, let's just, do this and check it off the box, or the next site.
Right.
Patrick cares deeply
Right.
about multi-site as well. And
Well.
wants it done
Mhm.
well.
Mhm.
And that's the piece that is encouraging, right? It's not going to be just like, we need to be ready. We need to be equipped. And if we're
Right.
called, we need to be
Mhm.
able to go, right? Like, to answer the bell. But at the same time, it's not a, oh, we have this
Right.
prescription and we're going to follow it every time. No, because the next church might not
Right.
need what Newaygo needed.
It's
And
not
the next
right.
church isn't going to be Newaygo, right? It might be, it's going to have its own unique population, its own unique challenges, its own unique, circumstances. And so the heart behind it of,
Right.
no, we're here to serve a body.
No, it's so good.
That's
It's so good.
that's
And I
what
think it's
is
so,
encouraging.
I'm so thankful again. We started with this authenticity thing that you are, that, the authenticity. And really, since I've started doing this podcast with all these leaders, the authenticity that says, hey, you know what? We haven't, we don't have this all figured out 100%. We're not, it's, it's not our show,
Yeah.
right? It's God working, and some of this stuff we're figuring out right now. And fly at the
We're going to
same
build a
time.
plane and fly it at the same time.
Right.
And trust that, hey, if we're leaning on God, it's going to be right the majority of the time, and we might have to tweak things because not everybody's going to be happy, but
Yeah.
if we trust God,
No, absolutely.
it's going to be
So,
okay.
looking at all of this, and I, typically as we start to wrap up, I ask a couple of questions of the elders. One would be, what do you, and I switch it back and forth, the good, the bad, which first, but what are you burdened for right now that you're like, man, God's really just laid this on the heart. It's something I'm passionate about, but I see that, we need God to work more in this area. You know, there's some, there's some, there's some shortfalls we have. There's some struggles we're going through. What are those areas that you see like, man, we're really praying hard in this thing because we're not sure how God's going to figure it out. We know he's going to, but we're not quite sure how he's going to do it.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to skeletons, right? Or the belief that we all as Christians, we all as parents, um, we all just as humans in life that love the Lord are doing what's best for our homes, for our communities, for our families. We are doing what we feel is best, right? And so, and that looks different across the body, right? There are families that both parents are working. There are families that have one spouse that works and one spouse that stays at home. We have broken families. We have kids that that are attending school at a faith-based school. We have just kids that are attending school at a home school. We have kids that are attending school at a public school. And it's the trusting and believing that it's okay for all of those families to make the choices that are best for their families.
Right.
And it's their right choice. And that there's not judgment in the fact that a spouse works or a spouse doesn't, or a kid goes to a public or a private school, or a kid chooses to be homeschooled. That's okay, because we're all doing it for the body and for the best version of what we can do to glorify Jesus. And so
Got you.
not being
Okay.
judgmental in our
Okay.
differences, and being real, and being real in the fact that, hey, we might choose different things,
Right.
but at the end of the day, we both love
Right.
Jesus, and that's awesome. And let's go be a champion for Jesus at the
Right.
platform that we're a champion for Jesus, whether that's working at an ice mountain plant and doing things that way, or working in a public school, or working at McDonald's, or going and being a bell ringer and serving that way, or in our Sunday school class, or wherever it might be. Let's
Right.
be a champion for Jesus. And, let's reach Big Rapids and beyond, and Nuevo and beyond, in the communities that we have that
So
circle
your
of influence
your
and beyond.
burden is, all right, keeping the main thing, and not being divided
Correct. Let's
on stuff
not.
that we shouldn't be dividing over. Okay. Sure. And I can see that.
Absolutely.
And frankly,
Absolutely.
I mean,
Yep.
the world is doing that, right? And so,
Absolutely. And because
it
at the end of
doesn't,
the day, Aaron, it doesn't matter.
right.
It shouldn't matter, right? Like the fact that I am glorified in Jesus Christ is
Mhm.
and I get to spend eternity with him. And, I have kids that have chosen to
Mhm.
love him, and a spouse that have chosen to love him, and gets to spend eternity. I want to bring all these brothers and sisters around me, like that they then have to
Right.
choose to do those
Right.
things.
And
That's
so
what
no,
should matter.
I can see that. And so I appreciate your heart that's like, hey, let's make sure we stay balanced here. Stay in tension, right? So
Yeah.
now the more that's
And
right.
don't
That's
make
right.
absolute
I
what the
love
Bible
it.
doesn't
I
make
love it.
absolute.
Whisper what it whispers about and scream about what it screams about. And don't mix them up. So, no, on the flip side of that, what do you, I mean, we've talked a little bit about, Patrick's vision, etc. Outside of Patrick's vision for what's going on, what are you excited about? And you can bring this to a micro level if you want, but what are you excited about? What do you look forward to?
Yeah.
And just, you're seeing God working in a wave coming. What's moving? What's happening?
I will tell you, I am excited for the families that I'm seeing healed, and just the breath of new life within the church. On a normal Sunday morning, and serving in kids ministry or doing different things or just being in attendance. Seeing, you mentioned the world, Aaron. Uh, we are more divided than ever before, right? And we live in a tension of like, do we want to live in the world but not of the world? Um, but without counting numbers, and truly, this is just
Right.
my own looking, right? On a Sunday morning, like
Hmm.
chairs are packed,
Hmm.
chairs are more full
Hmm.
than I think they ever have been. I think I would say that attendance is up, and that's families wanting to come back to the church, right? Or seeing the
Hmm.
value in, man, I need Jesus in my life because
Right.
this world is
Right.
screwed up. And I can't trust the outside world, man. I need to rally my troops
Mhm.
around the truth in God. And so that's the piece that I see that's encouraging, in spite of having a pastor who served faithfully and could preach the word, man. And Pastor Gary, and serving faithfully for over 30 years. We should have seen a dip in attendance. We should have seen a dip in, ministries and all of those things. And we've been able to fill Chuck's role, and by all intents, Nuevo is thriving through almost a year of,
Right.
hey,
Right.
what's our senior
Right.
pastor, or what's our pastor
Hmm.
going to look like? What's our
Hmm.
lead pastor going to look like? You know, um, Nuevo has been, hasn't
Sure.
missed a beat that way, and
Yeah.
people have stepped up and serving, and that's so awesome. And Nuevo or Big Rapids has, again, seats are more full, and families attending, and you're hearing those redemptive stories of, man, maybe we were looking at breaking up this family unit and breaking up a family, but man, we need Jesus, and we're going to come to church, and we're going to attend. Like, those stories are so encouraging. So in spite of transition, we are
You know,
continuing
that's
to be healthy. That
that's a
is
really good
that is
perspective,
awesome.
and something that I haven't and probably other people haven't thought about is, in all of this transition, in all of this, Gary leaving, Patrick moving, bringing on a new, but not having anybody in Nuevo, like, yes, people are tired and are working hard who have kind of filled in some roles and some gaps
For sure.
and but at the end of the day, the gospel's still going out. People are still coming to faith in Christ. People are still
Mhm.
growing and being transformed. There's still authenticity. Ministry's still happening. Like you say, live. And I think that, to give a shout out to Gary, like, that's what he wanted. He didn't want this to be, he did not want this,
He
right.
transitioned
He did
well.
not want
He
this to
passed the
be
baton.
a church built on Gary. He wanted it to be a church built on Christ. And Patrick did not want Nuevo to be a church built on
Absolutely.
Patrick. He wanted to be a church built on Christ. And I think the fact, what you're saying, those facts,
Yeah.
those statistics, if you will, are evidence that that's what happened. It was built on Christ. And so that, I think that, how awesome. Praise God for
And
that.
how
I
awesome.
think I think that's worth excitement. I think that's worth getting passionate about and fired up about. So, Kyle, thank you so much. If you had, kind of one thing to leave us with, one little nugget, kind of looking back over the conversation, one thing that you want to say, hey, Trinity Fellowship, this, what would that be? Wrap it up and put a bow on it. Take your time.
Man, I think it goes down to, and we've heard it from everywhere. You're not capable of serving, right? Alone. And maybe that's the wrong way to put it, but none of us in our own strength can do anything. And none of us in our own strength are equipped to do anything. It's taking that leap of faith of, we need to be a body that serves each other. And maybe your nudge isn't to be an elder, but maybe your nudge is to serve in Sunday school, or maybe your nudge is to help make meals or to do different things. But don't just come and be fed. Be a part of the serving of everyone, because everyone has gifts and talents that they have been given to them. And we need to serve the body well that way.
I love it. Well, Kyle, thank you so much for taking the time out to be on the podcast here. I think we lack Dennis and John, I think, is all we lack as far as getting elders recorded. So by the time this episode gets posted, we will probably have already completed recording with all the elders. And so looking forward to staff next. But thank you so much for being on, and we'll see you Sunday.
Thank you so much.